Guess who got brands talking? Brandlive.co.za.
Good morning to all our listeners out there. Breaking the Chains Recovery Radio brought to you from 27 boxes out in Melville. A wonderful Monday morning. Joburg's getting warmer. Our souls are on fire. We hope to fire up your imagination and rocket you into a fourth dimension of existence. On the show this morning is my friend and brother, co-host and best friend maybe at now. Warren, are you?
Uncle Manny, good morning. I'm very well. How are you, Uncle Manny?
No, no complaints. I got many things, but no complaints.
Many solutions to many problems.
Yeah. This morning we got Warren. We got Warren and myself have got a guy called Brett that's joining us in the studio. And Brett's going to be going through the panel and interview on alcohol. Is it the gateway drug?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't look at alcohol as a drug and see it as socially acceptable, but we know the problems caused by the spirit of the wrong kind, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, Brett.
Morning, guys. How's it going? Thanks for having me on the show today.
Brett, thank you for coming through to the show. Before we get started, Uncle Manny, some cool stuff happening at BTC this week. We got a fundraiser coming up in October.
Yes, we got a black and white dinner dance coming up. Most probably the best food in the land.
Mm-hmm.
We got a fantastic musician in Kani Naidu, that was amazingly in school with me from grade 1.
Okay.
And he's so chuffed to be involved in this project. So we on fire, you know.
Okay, good stuff. Well, we'll have all the details of the fundraiser on the show. It's only in October.
And then also, Warren, you can't forget, we got groundbreaking history. On the 1st of September is the 8th annual NA rally out in Lenasia. As far as I know, and maybe the listeners want to correct me, the Lenasia NA rally was the very first rally I know in this country for sure, by Narcotics Anonymous, for addicts, by addicts. And I think it might even be that case in the whole wide world. So South Africa is again doing firsts, and recovery always comes first.
And 8 years going strong, that's quite a track record. Brett, you were saying to me before the show, you're coming through to the rally?
No, most definitely I'll be there. I've been to many of the rallies, and it's always a good time.
Okay, good stuff. Brett, the first question I want to ask you this morning, as Uncle Manny said, we're speaking about alcohol, and it's a drug. I believe it's a drug. It's a legal drug, and it comes in many flavors. In your opinion, is alcohol a drug? And is it different from any other drugs, such as crack, heroin, benzos? Where does alcohol stand in this whole thing?
So, in answering that question, I think we first need to look at what is alcohol. The breaking it down into a substance or molecular level or whatever they call it, the active ingredient there is ethanol. Ethanol is the active ingredient in all of our favorite, or ex-favorite for us sitting here, alcoholic beverages. It is something that has a physiological effect on my body, and most people's body. Alcohol creates euphoria. Alcohol makes me more sociable. Alcohol...
To a point.
To a point, yes. And, I drink alcohol for recreational purposes. I drink alcohol to change the way I feel. And if you look at what is the definition of a drug is a substance that when I put in my body has a physiological effect on me.
Mm-hmm.
Does alcohol do that? Yes. So I'd have to say, in my opinion, yes, alcohol is a drug.
Okay, going back into the history, we sit here today, free men. I certainly, my first interaction with drugs was alcohol. As an 8-year-old kid on a Christmas day, all the adults were partying and I went around sipping all the leftovers in that they had left in their glasses, you know. And for the first time at 8 years old, I found myself falling asleep on a cold floor with my skipper lifted because my tummy was burning and I wanted to cool off, and I fell asleep like that, you know. But I didn't think of that until I walked in proper into recovery. Because if I look at my life, I certainly didn't like the after effects of alcoholism. So I found drugs to be a little bit easier in the beginning, so I substituted. And then the other thing, with my family, I couldn't drug, but I could drink. It was legally accepted. I was over 18. In fact, I come from a family, even at 15 and 16, Christmas Day, New Year's Day, I was allowed a glass of champagne. You know, it was cool. But knowing what I know today and having gone through the pains of chronic addiction, you know, we have these buzzwords going around: singleness of purpose and clarity statements. We're becoming intellectuals with other people's lives. And I think part of what Breaking the Chains has always been, we deal with recovery, you know. So tell us about your journey and your experience thus far.
Well, you know, I sit here today. I am very close to almost 4 years in recovery.
No,
Well
well done,
done.
man.
Thank
Nice.
you, guys. This
When's
time
your
round,
anniversary coming
it's
up?
going to be the 16th of August.
Okay.
You know, so right around the corner. And I've had various attempts at recovery. You know, I relate to many. I used to sit at family functions. I had my own special glass, and I got some champagne and I got some wine. You know, and when I wasn't being monitored, I'd had a few too many. You know, and even at that stage in the early days, 10, 11, 12, around there, I felt something I felt a connection to alcohol, if that makes sense.
A sense of ease and comfort.
Yes, you know, because, and the simple story I usually tell is that if you look at all the birthday pictures of Brett, me, there are a lot of tears and there's this really unhappy guy. And this normally happened around the point where you're sitting in front of your cake and everyone is singing happy birthday to you, you know. And round about 12 years old, after having one too many champagnes in my little glass, at that moment I didn't cry. And I felt that ease and pain that you spoke of, you know. And me being a very isolated, withdrawn child, all of a sudden I felt different. All of a sudden I felt like I can do this, you know. You know, there wasn't that anxiety or that fear, and it's like already at that age I'd found my solution, you know. My progression, I suppose, in the beginning you drink alcohol when you can get it, and whenever I got it, you know. Thinking back, I remember and especially relating to what we're talking about today, like in my school uniform at high school, I used to walk into a bottle store with my friends, buy what we need, and we're on our way, you know, no questions asked. Alcohol is freely available, it is accessible, it is legal, you know. No one really looks down on you if you're having a beverage. And my disease progressed, you know, where I started experimenting with other drugs, you know. And again, the what I found
So would you say alcohol was your gateway to drugs?
You know, looking back today, definitely, you know, because now I've tried alcohol. What's next? Especially as a young guy, a teenager, my brain's not fully developed. Alcohol takes away those inhibitions. Alcohol takes away that fear. You know, what's next?
And it kind of makes it okay to become intoxicated, whether it's on more alcohol or whether you're moving on to another drug.
Yeah.
Would you say so?
Yes, exactly. You know, it's a case of, towards the end of my journey and finding recovery again, it was a case of, yes, I can drink, but in whatever substance I could get my hands on at that point, this is going to work quicker than a bottle of vodka or a bottle of whatever it is. You know, I'll get there quicker and it's cheaper, and I'll get pretty much a very similar result.
Also, the smell is a little bit less.
Yes. So when you are in social situations or at work, you know, where it's not socially acceptable, I don't know why, to drink, I've got another substance I can use and it covers the smell.
And there's no breathalyzing. You can drive around. And Brett, what I relate to really well over there is that for me, alcohol was my gateway as well. I was 8 years old and my mom went to sleep one night. She used to have this chocolate liqueur in the house. I don't know if you know the nachtmusik, they call it.
Yes.
And I had a couple sips out the bottle of this nachtmusik. And that was the first time I got drunk. And I danced around on the couches. I was a very shy kid, very scared. And at once I felt the sense of ease and comfort. I felt okay. I felt connected. I felt a part of the world for the first time. And you know, if we look in 12-step literature, and if we look at the promises which are in the AA literature, it speaks of those promises. And when I had my first drink, that's what the drink did for me. They gave me a serenity and a peace, and they did for me what I couldn't do for myself for many years before that. And then moving on over the years, obviously when you're drinking at 11 years old, you expose yourself to older people who are smoking cigarettes and smoking weed. And weed often, dacha, gets made to be the gateway drug, but I believe almost 90% of people I've spoken to have been drinking before they started with the weed. And from there, it starts to progress and starts to progress. And I think there's, as you said, Uncle Manny, there's a lot that needs to be done, especially with old timers in the fellowship, in the AA fellowship, who are still punting the fact that there's this singularity of purpose and that alcohol is somehow different. I always think to myself, so we sit in our rooms, and if someone in the center had to say to you, Uncle Manny, I'm a crack addict and I can still drink, we'll try to convince them, and it might sound plausible to them. But if an alcoholic were in the center and they were to say to you, you know what, I'm an alcoholic, I can still smoke crack, it would be rather insane. And there's a lot of perceptions that need to be changed out there amongst people with the disease of addiction and amongst society in general, that alcohol is a drug and that we need to be able to identify it as a gateway. If you're listening out there and you've got an 8, 9, 10-year-old and they're showing a bit too much interest in the champagne and they're showing a bit too much. I remember as a kid, I went to a food and wine show and all I wanted was the wine. That we need to identify this, like we spoke about, I think 2 weeks ago, Uncle Manny, identifying children before they get to the point at which they start to become socio-ills and they start affecting society negatively. And I know that Breaking the Chains is involved with a really cool project around that at the moment.
Yeah, no, over the years, man, I've had alcoholics become crack addicts. I've had crack addicts become alcoholics. We've had crystal meth addicts become heroin addicts. And it's really just a progression that's different from individual to individual, It's also the denialism in the disease of addiction that makes you think that this time it's going to be different, that this substance is going to be different. You've learned a bit about the program. You now have some control, and you're going to be able to manage, They say the persistence of this illusion is astonishing.
Mm-hmm.
Many of us pursue it into the gates of insanity or death, And I must have worked with thousands of people. And we're currently working on a massive project with one of the large corporates. We're hoping to have some of them on the show, where we're dealing with 2,000 school kids under the age of 15. Of that, 60% of them have openly admitted to dealing and dabbling in either alcohol, dacha, heroin, or cat. Very dangerous substances. And we need to look at it. We're going to take a break, and after the ad break, we're back with the show that gets the soul working.
Have you ever thought about the power of social media? Social media has the power to make your business grow. Grow! Yeah. Why don't you let us manage your social media? Because our business is to see your business grow. Visit us at www.beastdownmedia.co.za.
Live from 27 boxes in the heart of Melville. This is brandlive.co.za.
Making a bold statement yet blending into the surrounding suburbs of Melville, 27 Boxes is a realization of edgy design and practical implementation. A radical departure from the shopping malls of our generation, yet not a return to the high streets of our youth. 27 Boxes showcases the best of a shopping centre set in a garden, surrounded by the bohemian suburb that is Melville. 27 Boxes, shop, play, eat.
You're listening to brandlive.co.za.
We're back on air. We're at 27 Boxes in Melville, and it's a beautiful sunny day outside, burning it up in studio with our guest. Brett, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Warren.
Brett, what I want to ask you next, and this is a really important question for all the people who have this thing, this illness we've identified out there, and are trying to trudge along this road of destiny that it speaks about, happy destiny, in fact. When we're trudging along this road, we often see a lot of soldiers, as I just spoke, fall because of this delusion of being able to drink. So what I want you to elaborate a bit on and give us your opinion on, Brett, is how does alcohol contribute to relapses for people in recovery from drug addiction?
So, when you look at someone who walks into recovery or walks into rehab for the first time, they very much identify with the drug or whatever substance it was that brought them there. As we've already discussed, alcohol is the lesser evil, and their focus would
The
be
legal evil.
The
That's it,
legal
maybe.
evil.
and very much their focus would be on the drug that brought them to their knees, and also working with people, you start to see that they identify alcohol as good times.
Yes.
There weren't such bad consequences, or were there even consequences when they first started
And the
drinking?
media has such a big role in that. You don't drive on the highway and see a billboard of someone shooting heroin with 4 hot women on a boat.
No, you don't. And so in the recovery game, as we know, we call these reservations. And if these reservations are not addressed, that's generally where we find guys starting with a relapse. Once I pick up that first drink, it is a relapse, And generally I also see that there's then a progression. I either progress within my alcoholism that I have now, or I progress to the exact same drug that brought me to my knees the first time. So we need to, as addicts coming into recovery or alcoholics, however you identify yourself, these reservations need to be addressed, especially with the addicts, because it is. We look at alcohol, and alcohol's not that bad. It's on the TV. It is everywhere.
Mom does it, dad does it, uncle does it. So alcoholism is a secret disease that very silently destroys not the person using it only, but the people around him. And they say we drink mainly for the effect, And I love that effect. For many years, for 21 years of my life, I chased that effect. And when I walked into recovery, I remember my first stint, I was 11 months clean, and then I got introduced to crack. And for the next 8 years, I didn't drink, but crack had become my problem. And it's absolutely true what Brett is saying, in that we have selective memories when it comes to the ego, because the ego forces us to continue. I tried for many years to prove I'm not an alcoholic, to prove I'm not an addict. But it's only when I met my current sponsor, which big shout out to Jakes, I think the man that saved my life. And he put it in perspective for me, and I understood for the first time in my life that by merely accepting the fact of my makeup, that I'm an addict and I'm an alcoholic, I could find a better life. And I don't regret that day. That day was almost 16 years ago. So Brett is sitting here, he's 4 years clean, I'm going on 16 years clean. So it should tell you that there's a long-term solution, not a short middle of the road
21 day.
21-day solution, you know. And if there's any families out there, you know, I've buried, if there's a shout out to the guys that I buried, you know.
Sure.
Because as much as they might have died from the addiction, but they taught me a valuable lesson that this disease kills. And it's not often that we get down to the nitty gritty of the pain. And I think that's the worst pain a mother can have. But then I've also had mothers who had buried their children that said to me, you know, Uncle Manny, it's okay. At least I know now where I can find him, you know. That was like so profound when I heard it the first time. When I say it, I get goosebumps. Simply because how could a mother find such peace in death? The only reason is that there is such pain and turmoil in addiction. Warren, any shout-outs from you?
Uncle Manny, as every week, shout out to the man who saved my life, sitting right next to me. Thank you, Uncle Manny. Everything we continue to do together. I want to send a shout out to a young man at Breaking the Chains, the newcomer, Bradley. And I want to say to you, boss, that you've come in with a lot of willingness, and I have a lot of respect for how you entered the center, and I have a lot of faith in you. I've got my money on you. I'm betting on you, brother. From your side, Uncle Manny, we're doing recovery Euros still.
Yeah, no. And to Bradley, I know they're listening to the show. That's the beauty of Breaking the Chains. We focus on recovery. Big up to you, boss. Just remember, we don't back donkeys, we back horses in the July.
It.
Big shout out to Raymond, Shadley, Kuben, and Tony, who had like a platinum celebration at Breaking the Chains this Saturday that passed. Total metamorphosis for all guys. So keep the flags of Breaking the Chains flying high, and until we meet again.
And Brett, from your side, any shout-outs? Look, I ask you, Uncle Manny, are we doing recovery Euros? Anyone with celebrations? I don't think there's a week that there's not Thanksgivings and celebrations.
No. There's a lot of celebrations. Jared's coming up, Tim's coming up, Tristan's coming up, you know, Sumeshan's coming up. Breaking the Chains, you want to party, get there on the weekend.
Yeah, come through on Saturday for the Thanksgivings. Brett, shout-outs from your side, brother.
Well, just firstly, a quick one to a friend of all of us here, old Tim, who recently got engaged yesterday. So well done there, boss.
You know, Tim's a Breaking the Chain soldier, eh?
Yes, I know that. And then just the team that I work with, the people that are in my life today, and especially the program that's given me this life. And I'm truly blessed.
You
Okay.
know, just a quick one. There was a guy that Tim and me work very close, you know. And there was a guy that Tim brought in. And when Tim got engaged, he responded on the group, my interventioner. You know? So Tim, shot boss.
Okay, guys, I think next week we're going to have a really cool show lined up. We might have something that's going to bring a lot of insight into all of you over what's being done around addiction. And next week we'll talk a bit about the show, leave it for as a surprise for now. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to Breaking the Chains Recovery Radio. Brett, thank you so much for coming through to the show. And same time, same place, 27 Boxes, Melville, brandlove.co.za, BTCRR signing out.
Harnessing the power of talk radio. brandlive.co.za